Before we get started, we just want to announce for anyone interested in ordering Mr. Lindell's 4-CD set, go to metaphysicalarttheater.com. For those in the U.S., you can order either physical copies or the digital downloads. For those outside the U.S., you can order the digital downloads by going to metaphysicalarttheater.com.
How you doing, sir?
Oh, just fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. But today we want to talk about the law or the spirit of mutual exchange. Another name for it would be sowing and reaping. Do you believe that every exchange, everything that we do is a byproduct of sowing and reaping?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And everybody's telling what they think and feel. And it's it's up to the individual to check for themselves, first person, wouldn't you say?
I would. And that's the thing. I think a lot of times I was talking to a young man recently, and he loves this work. He loves teaching. He loves exchanging ideas with people. He one day wants to write a book, but he said, if I write a book, I don't want to charge for the book because last time I tried to charge for something, people gave me such a difficult time because they thought that everything should be free. Should we not charge for our services?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you should charge for your services. You're a worker worthy of his hire. And believe me, going around in motels, hotels, which I really got tired of, it's a lot of work. And if people don't get it, I'm a worker is worthy of his hire. Now, there were times when I didn't charge, but that was just my idea of sharing a message with those who probably couldn't afford it anyway. No, the worker is worthy of his hire. And definitely you are, I know, because I know you're busy all the time and I am on the phone all the time. So it's quite demanding of you.
And I like that you use that scripture because actually that was the scripture that came to me when Jesus had sent the disciples out. He said exactly that the labor worker is worthy of his or her hire. And you brought about another great point, and the point was people don't realize the time that we put into even giving free away. One of these talks could literally be 5 or 6 hours with editing and you and I collaborating and, putting it together and converting it from one format to another format. There's a lot of work involved in these labors of love. And it's not definitely a complaint, but a lot of people don't know what goes into free material. So even free material isn't free. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. All this stuff, all these things cost money. I mean, yeah, I gave away an awful lot of stuff in the beginning. As a matter of fact, my wife said, honey, the idea is to sell them, not give them away. She's my bookkeeper. So, but the thing of it is, no, that's ridiculous. I mean, if you call a plumber over and he fixes something for you, he's going to charge you. Isn't that right? What we're fixing is your life.
Absolutely. When we do these free talks, we're not trying to get compensated for the free talks. That's why Neville had books. Like I said, he did have an entry fee of $2 to get into one of his talks, $2 or $3, depending upon the time frame. But beyond that, he didn't ask for any money. He wasn't passing a plate around. But basic entry, you had to at least pay to get into the talk. And I only know that because beyond you saying it, I was listening to one of his talks recently, and he was talking about a man of color that said he had a problem. And the problem was that he was born a colored man in that time. And Neville told me it wasn't a problem. And I only bring that man up because, of course, the man said that he had $54 for the course of time. And he used that $54 for he and his wife to enter into Neville's talks. And at one point, he couldn't even pay the babysitter. But the whole point was Neville blessed him so with the information that he gave him that the man turned his life over and created a $250,000 business at that time. So You're absolutely correct. As far as we have to be able to look at the services that we provide and realize that there's value in it. So I agree. But he stated later on that because of what he learned from Neville, he was able to create a business that was creating for him $250,000 a year at that time, which was a lot of money, again, in the 60s and the 70s. You see the benefit of when you receive, as it were, valuable information. Would you agree?
That's exactly what it is. In other words, you're told, seek and you shall find. Name it. Say it. Claim it. Be it. That's what Scripture's been telling you all through the whole book. It tells you, be it. Do it. Because what you're being and doing is looking for you to be and do with you. So it's always up to you. Attitude, awareness, imaginational control. These two things, I remember when I started a little self-examination there about attitudes. I had attitudes I really wasn't aware of. And I find that people tell me now that they did find many attitudes that they were not aware of and that they didn't need because it was not adding to them in any way good. So if you'll do the work and invest in yourself, that's all you need to do is invest in yourself in the theater of mind. Metaphysical Art Theater is presenting to you theater of the mind, yours. And it's what you do with it. That's what's important. Because you're always thinking ahead of your evidence. And your evidence is what you have thought. So if you can go back today and see what you thought yesterday and what you did yesterday and how you're doing it today, because it doesn't change till you change your mind. Otherwise, it'll be same old, right down the line. Attitude, awareness, imaginational control is what you're looking for. That's the how of desired change. And if you're looking for desired change, see what attitude you're dealing with. Because if you just want your own inner conversations, you'll catch yourself either setting yourself up or setting yourself free. That's all you have to look for, right?
Absolutely. And I like that you spoke on attitude, because what it all comes down to, as you said so often, is attitude. So when we're talking about the law of mutual exchange or sowing and reaping, the attitude that you're sowing is the harvest that you're eventually going to reap. So if it's a negative attitude, like you said, you weren't even aware of your attitude at one point, but that attitude was in fact producing a harvest. Would you agree?
That's the whole idea, isn't it, of being aware of what you're allowing yourself to entertain as thought, because that's what you're experiencing. That is your daily experience, what you're doing in mind, in thought. What are you thinking about? And you'll know your future. That's what everybody wants to know, and everybody wants to change things, and you're given change. I remember Neville saying he never met a man who didn't want to change something. Well, I'm sure that's still true today. Wouldn't you say so?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that a lot of people need to understand that if, for example, speaking of change, what I find for myself is like when I see somebody excelling, I like to celebrate with them, because I know that in celebrating with them, it's opening up the door for my own abundance. If we have an attitude that says that people shouldn't prosper, then what we're doing is truly closing the door to our own abundance. Would you agree?
That's it. All denial is self-denial. So there's nobody to blame for where you're at, what you're doing, and how you feel, but you. So if you'll tackle that, you'll be so far ahead, you'll be head and shoulders above the rest of the world. I'll tell you, it's easy to do, but it's difficult to and maintain. And that's probably the reason it isn't going on so often, right?
Absolutely. And I was reaching out to someone, in the Facebook group, and said exactly that. It is easy to do, but perseverance becomes the challenge of maintaining that thought. And I know that a lot of people out there struggle with staying on task, of thinking lovingly of good report. Would you agree?
Yes, and I'm one of them. I'm one of those who struggles to keep it lovely and a good report, because everybody is tempted. You say, "Well, that's dirty," and so you mouth off things, and you think it falls into the past. But I tell you, it does not. It is not falling into the past. Anything you say right now is being projected into your future, and you're going to face it. You don't want to face the nonsense or the monsters that you're dreaming up. Stop dreaming them up.
There's nothing that fades back into the past. It doesn't stay there. It basically advances to our future. And if we're not mindful, aware of what it is that we're giving our attention to, we're going to repeat it. Would you agree?
That's right. We're told that our life is not really worthy of our attention unless we make it so. You see, what is it that you're thinking about? All you have to do is dread something. And that's you using the power to be dreading. Dreading what? Understand, there's only one power, and we're all using it. But what are you using it for? Every word must be accounted for. You're on all the time. So being on all the time, every word means something. It has some weight to it, and it adds to or subtracts from. It's always up to you to pay attention. And it seems to me that statement alone should make it worthy of your attention to check it out. Wouldn't you say?
I would. And I like that you keep bringing us back to, what are we giving our attention to? Attitude awareness and imaginational control. You said that's what it's all about. And so many of us, we hear these talks repeatedly, and sometimes that's the challenge. Would you agree?
Well, actually, yes, that's true. But you see, the thing of it is, you have to keep reminding yourself, if they don't know, they don't know.
It is true. That's true.
And that's really close to me right here. They don't know what you're talking about, so they can't really put any feeling in the substance of it. So all you can do is just keep repeating it, keep repeating it, keep repeating it. And sooner or later, it'll actually sink down to a level right where they're thinking feelingly most of the time. And then suddenly they'll have a revelation. But the thing of it is that you're having the revelations all the time anyway, but you're just not recognizing them because you're not focused. Your mindsets are not aiming in that direction. And they do operate automatically. But let's put it this way. The whole thing of religion is on automatic. In other words, as you think you are. You can't get any more automatic than that. As you think you are, you do, you have, you be. And that's what you are, a thinking, feeling being. And you're thinking, feeling something all the time, and you're experiencing and not knowing that you set yourself up for doing whatever it is you're doing. So you're always in control. Even if you're out of control, you're still steering, right?
Absolutely. And I like that you reminded me, as we're going through and as we're having this discussion, that they don't know. You made me think about when the prophet was sent out to speak against Nineveh. Jonah was in the mouth of the whale, and then, of course, he was expelled, and then he went to the people of Nineveh, and they saw his condition, and, of course, they repented. And Jonah was up on a hill next to a gourd, and the gourd basically withered up because of the sun, the day, whatever. And Jonah began to weep for the gourd. And God said to him, you'll weep for this gourd, this plant, but you won't weep for a nation of people that don't know their right hand from their left hand. And it's true, we were even of those people who didn't know. So that's why we continue to do the message. And I appreciate you bringing that back, saying they don't know. And that's why we repeat the message.
That's it. That's exactly it. You keep repeating it, and sooner or later, and that's how I got it. You see, I know what you really have to go through, because I understand what I'm asking you to do is to be patient with yourself. That's number one. You have to be patient with yourself. Feeling is the secret of getting. Feeling, and it's yours. It's that simple. But it takes you setting new mindsets, new things that are going to operate automatically to catch you in the act of either setting yourself up or setting yourself free. And if you see yourself talking about something that's setting you up for an altercation of some kind, stop it right there. Don't finish it. Don't stop it. Don't follow through with that. Just drop it and turn to something that's, again, lovely and a good report. We say that, but that's whatever it is to you that you're looking for, feel after that. That's what you want to focus on. That's what you want to have your attention, because it's what we're all doing, aware or unaware, and all we're telling you, it's all your attitudes, it's all your attention, it's all right with you. You don't need to converse with anyone if you'll just converse with yourself knowingly. Is that it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it goes back to what was stated. I mean, when we repeat the message, because we know that the message is in you, but what I do know in repeating the message, for someone, this is their first time hearing the message. And for the person that's heard it 100 times, something's going to click for the first time in hearing the message. Would you agree?
Well, actually, if you're lifted at all, that's what you're supposed to open and quicken, right?
Absolutely.
That's it. That's what the open and quickening means. It means your attention alerted you to something, follow through on it, because that's how it happens. You're changing your mind, changing your world, and the first does the second. You change your mind, that changes your world. But you must feel what you're saying, what you're thinking, because it's feeling is the secret. How you feel is what you do, what you have, what you be, and you can choose to be happy. You have to choose to be happy when other things around you, when your environment is not conducive to you being happy. You still have to choose to be happy. And when you do that, after a while, it becomes a natural thought, a natural feeling. And that's what you want. You want that feeling of today is a great day, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like that you said choose to be happy. Now, for some people, they're going to say, but you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know how difficult that choice is. But it goes back to what we're talking about, the law of mutual exchange. The second you make that choice to shift your thinking, you said it before in the past. You said that sometimes if you're feeling out of sort, you watch a funny movie or you listen to music that makes you smile, and that helps get you back into sort. And we all have our own routines that will allow us to get back into the desired state. Would you agree?
Yes, that's it. You know, how many times have you heard that people who were on the deathbed, so to speak, because there was nothing they could really do for them? And I remember one fellow, I'm trying to think of his name right now, but what he did was he went to a hotel room and he took everything he needed, and he watched comedy on television. And he was, really into it. And after a while, he got up, he went home, he was well. I don't know what happened. I don't know what he was thinking. I just know that was what happened, that now is the appointed hour of desired change. Now. You start right now. I don't know how long it'll take you, but I can tell you how you can tell, because if you're wholehearted about what you're doing, that's a done deal. Being wholehearted is the thing itself. So feel after him, you being, doing, having, and you'll find you.
And it sounds like you were actually given the biography of Norman Cousin, because I know that one of the things...
Yes, that's it, yes.
So with Norman Cousin, he did a book, of course, called The Anatomy of Illness, but that's what he said, in line with the doctor's treatments and everything else that they were doing, because they had pretty much given up on him. He started watching, he found all the funny movies that he could find, and he basically went through this regimen. And what that allowed his body to do was to create the endorphins within his body to create healing, as it were. And we all have the ability to do that.
You're right. We all have the ability. See, this is an intelligent body that you're wearing. It really is. It takes orders from you. It listens to everything you say, not words, but feeling. And then it operates in accordance to how you feel. So if you feel happy, it's working to build you up. If you're feeling down, it'll also work to bring you down even further, because it's taking your orders, feeling. That really says it, doesn't it?
It does say it. It does say it. And it goes back to what Neville would often say, is that feeling is the secret.
Yes, that's it. It actually is. And how you feel is very important, because that's the message you're sending to your body. We feel great. If you feel bad and you actually say it, people say things all the time. They think it just falls into the past, but it doesn't. It doesn't fall into the past. You're actually creating your future moment by moment, as within, so without. Think about this. See, that's what the silence. We keep telling you, go into silence, go sit and be still. And that's what Scripture tells you, be still and know that I am God. With you always. Will never leave you. Omnipresence with you, right here, right now. Talk to me, he says. Talk to me. Tell me. You receive not because you ask not, or you're asking amiss. And that's something you really should check on, that asking amiss. Because if you're not asking for, then you're asking against. It's always up to you, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And speaking of asking, Peter begged the Lord. He said, bid me to come upon the water. And Jesus said, come upon the water. So Peter began to walk on the water, but he started looking at the waves around him, and he got distressed. And many of us are asking, but then we begin looking at the world around us, and we get distressed, and we undo our asking. So we go back to what Mr. Lindell was just talking about, asking amiss. Would you agree?
Yes. And the thing of it is that you're actually projecting into the world moment by moment. Every moment. You're thinking feelingly, even though you're not saying anything out loud. You're thinking to yourself. That thinking to yourself is just the same as blurting it out to the world. Because as within, so without. That, in other words, what you're saying on the without might mean nothing. But what you're saying on the within, you're being serious about, because you're only talking to yourself. And you're only suggesting to yourself. But ask yourself, what is it that I'm thinking about that is not feeding me where I want to go? These talks have to be reiterated, because that's the secret, that you feel wanted. You are wanted. God loves you just as you are. He's not not judging you, and he's the one who's to judge, and he's not judging you. You're judging yourself. You're denying yourself. Why? It's open, wide open. It says, do a thing, and you shall have the power. A thing. Doesn't that leave it wide open?
It does. It does. It's funny that you spoke about wide open, because we did a talk on whosoever, whatsoever, kind of speaking of the same subject of do a thing and you shall have the power. And somebody had requested, will we do a talk on everything, manifesting everything? I said, when you think about whatsoever is everything. Would you agree?
That's right. That's right. And it tells you not to imagine mischievous imaginings. He's telling you, don't do that, because that's that fear of God. It says the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. It's not fear in that sense. It means respect, because he means what he says. You're on all the time. You have a valid say. You're saying your valid say. And your world of experiencing is the result of what you're saying with your valid say. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I want to go back and touch briefly on that concept, the fear of God, the reverence of God. God is not the being outside of us. And not to say that God isn't. God's all things to all.
What you think about, you're going to experience. It's as simple as that. Keep it that simple. You'll remember it. If you think it, you'll experience it. If you don't want to experience it, then don't think it. Because as you think, you are. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And I keep repeating that because even if it annoys you to hear it over and over and over, that's okay, because it's doing its job. It's affirming to you that you do have a valid say, and you should watch it. And saying the fear of God is that he meant what he said. You're in charge of choosing your world moment by moment. What are you choosing? That's all you have to ask yourself, because then you'll know where you're starting from. And that's what it is, starting. You have to learn to be patient with yourself. That's, like I keep saying, that's number one. You got to be patient with yourself. And that's really the biggest problem I ever had, was just being patient. You can, whatsoever is already a given. Given. Not going to get, given. You have a valid say. You're saying your valid say, and your world is formed in exact duplicate to that saying. You can deny this, but if you actually sit in silence and think back, you'll see that what you had thought is what you're experiencing. I can only say it that general because I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what you're feeling. But if you're feeling down, stand up. Feel the world living in you, because everything is alive in you now, right now. All the knowledge there is in you now. And how do I know that? Jesus said it. I and my Father are one, even as you and I are one. So it's all right with you. You turn to me, I'll turn to you. That's the message of God, isn't it?
It is. It is the message. And I like that you made mention again a number of times, valid say. Somebody inquired recently about what is valid say. And as Mr. Lindell just articulated, your valid say is whatever it is that you're saying. What we're saying is be mindful. If you're giving say to a idle thought, Jesus says that's valid. So your valid say is whatever you're thinking. Your thoughts are your prayers. Your prayer is your valid say. If you're thinking it with feelings, now we do understand that sometimes a thought comes into mind and you say, where did that come from? And you don't hold on to it. That's not the thoughts that we're talking about. What we're talking about are those thoughts that you hold on to with feelings and you own, and you say, this is the way I feel or think or believe. Those thoughts, even if it's a negative thought, is a valid say. Would you agree?
Yes. Trio that you run over and over and over in your mind is creating your world of experiencing. That's it. What has your attention? That's what's important. I mean, if you were watching a little child, pay attention because you don't know where he's going to go next, right? So it's paying attention to what you're thinking feelingly about. No, you're not paying attention all the time. I'm more than aware of that. But as much as possible, 5 minutes is a long time, really, if you're really focused on something. And paying attention is really important because you have to know what's going on in you to find out what you're going to be experiencing on the without. But remember, as you think, you are, you do, you have, you create. And it is creating because you're given to create choice, choose. Think about it. What are you choosing? Because thinking feelingly is choosing what you're thinking feelingly about. Just as when you're angry, you're creating more of what you're angry about with more and more and more, and you can get caught up in something and drive yourself nuts, right?
Absolutely. And you said whatever you're thinking feelingly about. And so I want to challenge the listeners about relationships, love, money, health. What are you saying constantly to yourself? That, I'm always sick, that I never have enough money, that nobody will love me. What is your continual conversation to yourself? Would you agree?
Well, that was mine. That was mine. I had every one of those you talked about, and then it got turned around. Because what I heard from Neville Goddard is that I was in charge. And I'm saying, no, I'm in charge. And he says, yes, you are. You may be acting in a way that's not beneficial to you, but you're still in charge. I went back in thought, thinking certain ideas, seeing the results of it right now. And so decided to change. And all you do to change is you change your attitude. You change your mind. You're given to ask. You're told you receive not because you ask not. Well, it seems to me you could get over that hurdle pretty easily.
Absolutely. The thing is, as you stated that you had all those concerns yourself, and likewise with most of us, I know that I did. And those concerns that I had was I lovable, my health, my finances, and finances was a big one. Many of those ideals came from my environment, from my parents, from my educators. They weren't even my own. I brought them and purchased them and allowed them rent in my mind from other people.
That's called conditioning.